It was supposed to be just another birthday, a simple day, a few messages, a couple of calls, nothing extraordinary. But for her, that day changed everything. Her name was Aisha. She woke up to the soft vibration of her phone, still half asleep, her eyes barely open. Notifications flooded her screen. Friends, cousins, classmates all sending the same words. Happy birthday. She smiled. It felt warm, familiar. But then, there was one message that felt different. Unknown number. She hesitated for a moment before opening it. Happy birthday, Aisha. I don't know if you remember me, but I've been waiting for this day just to wish you. Her heart paused. Who is this? She typed back. The reply came almost instantly. Someone who noticed you long before today. She frowned slightly, curiosity replacing confusion. And just like that, a conversation began. The beginning of something unseen. His name was Armaan. They weren't strangers, not completely. Same college, same campus, different worlds. He had seen her before walking through the corridors laughing with her, friends lost in her own little universe. And somehow, she stayed in his mind for months, but he never had the courage to talk to her. Until her birthday gave him a reason. From text to feelings, what started as a simple thank you turned into late-night conversations. One day, then two, then every day. They talked about everything. Dreams, fears, childhood memories, favorite songs. And slowly, they started waiting for each other. Aisha would check her phone first thing in the morning. Armaan would stay awake just to say goodnight. It wasn't planned. It wasn't forced. It just happened. The first realization. One night the conversation stopped. No messages, no calls. Hours passed. Aisha felt something strange, restlessness. Why does it feel like something is missing, she thought. And that's when she realized it wasn't just a conversation anymore. It was him. Love without saying it. Days turned into weeks. Feelings grew stronger. But neither of them said it. Because sometimes the most real love is the one that doesn't need words. Until one day, Armaan finally said it. I think I don't just like talking to you anymore. Aisha's heart raced. She knew what he meant, but still she asked, what do you mean? A long pause. Then came the message that changed everything. I think I am in love with you. The silence before forever. She didn't reply immediately, not because she didn't feel the same, but because she felt too much. Minutes passed. Then finally, I was waiting for you to say that when love became everything. After that day, everything changed. They weren't just two people talking anymore. They became each other's world. Morning started with each other. Night ended with each other. They couldn't imagine a day apart. Distance didn't matter. Time didn't matter. Because love had taken over everything. The day they met, after months of talking, they finally decided to meet. A simple place, a quiet cafe. Aisha walked in first. Her heart was racing. What if it feels different? What if this isn't he real? But then, she saw him, and suddenly, everything felt right. Armaan stood up slowly, nervous, but smiling, and in that moment, without saying a single word, they knew this was real. Love that couldn't he live apart. Days turned into memories. Moments turned into promises. They spent every chance they got together, laughing, talking, just being. And slowly, they reached a point where being apart felt impossible. The moment of forever. One evening, under a quiet sky, Armaan held her hand and said, I don't want a life where you are not in it. Aisha looked at him, tears in her eyes. Then don't he let me go. And in that moment, they chose each other. Not just for that day, but for every day after. At first, everything felt perfect. Aisha and Armaan lived in a kind of dream where time seemed softer, lighter. Their calls stretched longer than nights. Their laughter filled empty spaces they didn't even realize existed before. But slowly life began to test them. Not loudly, not all at once, but quietly like cracks, forming under something that looked strong. Armaan started becoming busy. At first it was small, just a little work pressure, he said. Then it became longer replies, missed calls, delayed good mornings. Aisha noticed, but she stayed quiet. Because love often teaches patience before it teaches pain. The first distance. One evening, Aisha waited for him. 1 hour passed. Then 2, no message. Finally, she texted, are you okay? No reply. That night she couldn't sleep. Not because she didn't trust him, but because silence has a way of speaking louder than words. The next morning, Armaan finally called. His voice sounded tired. I am sorry, I've been overwhelmed. Aisha smiled softly, even though he couldn't see it. It's okay, just don't disappear like that. There was a pause. Then he said something she didn't expect. I am trying my best, but I feel like I am failing at everything. And just like that, she realized he wasn't pulling away from her. He was drowning in his own world. Love in real life. Days turned into a strange balance. Some days felt like before, some days felt far. But Aisha stayed. Even when she didn't understand everything, she became his calm, his safe place. But even safe places can get tired of holding too much. One night, after a long silence, she finally said, Armaan, do you still feel like we're the same as before? He didn't answer immediately. That pause hurt more than words. Then he said quietly, I don't know what I am becoming lately. And for the first time, Aisha felt afraid, not of losing him, but of losing what they used to be, the breaking point. A few days later, something changed. Armaan didn't call at all, not even a message. Aisha tried again and again, still nothing. That night, something inside her shifted. Not anger, not drama, just exhaustion. She typed a message she never thought she would send. If I'm becoming a burden, just tell me honestly. Minutes passed. Then hours. No reply. And in that silence, she understood something painful. Sometimes people don't leave loudly. They just stop showing up. The return. 2 days later, he finally called. His voice was different, quieter. He said, I was scared to talk to you. Aisha froze. Why? I felt like I was losing myself, and I didn't want to lose you too. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't interrupt. He continued, I thought love was supposed to fix everything, but I realized I'm not okay inside. A long silence followed. Then Aisha said softly, love was never supposed to fix you. Armaan, it was just supposed to stand beside you. That hit him deeply, choosing each other again. For the first time, they didn't talk like lovers. They talked like two real people trying to understand life. Not perfect, not dreamy, real. Armaan said, I don't want to lose you, but I also don't want to keep hurting you unknowingly. Aisha took a deep breath. Then don't he disappear, don't he shut me out. A pause. Then she added, but don't he expect me to carry everything alone either. Silence. And then, I want he said, a different kind of love. Things didn't go back to how they were. But maybe that was the point. They started learning something new. Love wasn't just late night calls. It wasn't just emotions. It was effort. It was showing up. Even when it is hard, especially when it is hard. And slowly, they didn't become the same people they were before. They became something stronger, something real. And still, even now there were moments of doubt, moments of silence, moments where distance tried to return. But every time it did, they chose to stay. Not because it was easy, but because they had already seen what life feels like without each other, and that was something neither of them wanted to lose again. But life has a strange way of testing even the strongest promises. Just when things started to feel stable again, something unexpected happened. Aisha received a message one evening that didn't belong to their world. It was from Armaan's friend, not him. Just a simple text. Armaan met with an accident, he's in hospital. For a second, Aisha couldn't breathe properly. The phone slipped slightly in her hand. Her mind refused to accept the words. Accident. Hospital. Armaan. No, this can't be real. The hospital night. She reached the hospital faster than she ever thought possible. The corridors felt longer than usual. The smell of medicine, the cold lights, the silence of waiting people. Everything felt unreal. And then she saw him. Armaan was lying there, bandages on his arm, his face-tired eyes half open. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Because some emotions are too heavy for words. Aisha walked closer slowly. Her voice broke as she said, You scared me. Armaan tried to smile weakly. I didn't mean to, but she interrupted him immediately. Don't he joke, not now. Her eyes were filled with tears she was trying hard to control. And in that moment, all the distance, all the silence, all the misunderstandings, they didn't matter anymore. Only one thing did. He was here alive. Truths that come out in silence. After a long pause, Armaan spoke softly. I thought I had everything under control, but I don't. Aisha sat beside him, still holding his hand. I know. He looked at her, surprised. You know? Aisha nodded slowly. I've always known you were struggling. You just didn't want to show it. A long silence followed. Then Armaan whispered, I was scared that if I showed my weakness, you would leave. Aisha shook her head immediately. That's where you were wrong. Her voice softened. I didn't fall in love with your perfection, Armaan. I fell in love with you. A new beginning inside broken moments. That night didn't fix everything, but it changed something deeper. For the first time, Armaan stopped pretending. And for the first time, Aisha stopped guessing. They started talking honestly about pressure, about fear, about future, about how love sometimes isn't enough unless two people are willing to fight for it in real life, not just in emotions. Days passed. Armaan recovered slowly. Aisha stayed close, not just as a lover, but as a partner in every sense. When life tested them again, just when it felt like things were finally healing, another storm arrived. Armaan's family found out about Aisha, and they didn't accept it at all. One evening, Armaan told her quietly, "They want me to focus on my future, and they don't think this relationship is right." Aisha stayed silent for a long time, not because she didn't understand, but because she did. Sometimes love isn't rejected because it's weak, but because the world is complicated. The hardest conversation. That night they met one last time before things changed. The same cafe where they had once met in peace. Now it felt heavier. Armaan looked at her and said, "I don't want to lose you." Aisha smiled faintly, even though her eyes were tired. "Then don't bus," but he shook his head slowly. "It's not that simple this time." Silence fell between them. Then Aisha asked the question she was afraid to ask. "So what happens now?" Armaan looked down. "I don't know?" And that honesty hurt more than anything else. The choice no one wants to make. Aisha took a deep breath. She said softly, "Do you love me?" Without hesitation he answered, "Yes." Then she asked, "Enough to fight for me?" That question stayed in the air for a long moment. Armaan's eyes filled with emotion, but he didn't answer immediately. And that silence was the answer. Aisha slowly stood up, not angry, not dramatic, just accepting. The goodbye that didn't feel like goodbye. Before leaving, she said, "I did not come into your life to make it harder. Armaan, I came to love you." He stood up quickly. "But I do love you." Aisha nodded. "I know." A pause. Then she added softly, "But sometimes love is not enough to stay." Her voice cracked slightly. "But it will always be enough to remember." She turned around, walked away slowly. And this time, he didn't stop her. But love doesn't end easily. Days turned into silence again. No calls, no messages, only memories. But something strange happened over time. Neither of them forgot. Because real love doesn't disappear when people separate. It just changes shape. Sometimes into pain, sometimes into growth, sometimes into memory. And somewhere deep down, both of them knew one truth. What they had was real, even if life didn't let it stay. Time didn't stop for either of them. It moved forward quietly, relentlessly like it always does. Aisha finished her studies. She built a career. She learned how to smile without checking her phone every few minutes. But some memories don't leave. They just become quieter. Armaan, on the other hand, changed too. He focused on his family expectations, his work, his responsibilities. On the surface, life looked successful. But success doesn't always mean peace. The unexpected return. It was a normal evening when Aisha received an email notification. She almost ignored it until she saw the name. Armaan. Her hands paused. For a moment she didn't open it. Not because she didn't want to, but because some names carry old versions of your heart. Finally she clicked. The message was short. "I don't know if you'll read this, but I'm in the same city for work for a few days. If you're okay with it, I'd like to see you once, just once." Aisha stared at the screen for a long time. No immediate answer, no rush. Just memories slowly returning like waves. The meeting after everything. They chose a quiet place again. Not the same cafe, a different one. Because people don't meet the same way twice after years apart. Aisha arrived first. She sat there calmly, but her fingers betrayed her nervousness. Then she saw him. Armaan walked in slowly. He looked different, more mature, more tired in a silent way. But still the same eyes that once said everything without words. For a moment neither of them moved. Then Armaan smiled faintly. "You still come on time." Aisha gave a small, almost emotional smile. "I always did." Silence followed. Not awkward, just heavy with everything they never said. The words left unspoken for years. Finally Armaan spoke. "I used to think about this moment a lot." Aisha looked at him. "Did it ever go the way you imagined?" He shook his head slightly. "No. In my imagination, I always knew what to say." A pause. "But now I realize nothing feels enough." Aisha nodded slowly. "I know that feeling." Another silence. Then she asked quietly, "Why did you really call me here?" Armaan looked down for a moment, then said honestly, "'Cause I never really got closure and I didn't want to live my whole life pretending I was okay with how things ended." Aisha listened carefully. Then she replied, "Neither did I. What time didn't he erase?" For a moment it felt like nothing had changed, and everything had changed. Armaan said softly, "You ever hate me?" Aisha didn't answer immediately. Then she said, "No." He looked surprised. She continued, "Because what we had wasn't something I could hate, it was something I had to learn how to live without." Those words hit differently, not painful, just real. The truth about first love. Armaan leaned back slightly. "I messed it up, didn't I?" Aisha shook her head. "No." A pause. Then she added, "We just didn't know how to survive something real at that time." That sentence stayed between them. Quiet, honest, final in a soft way. The last choice. The sun outside started fading. It was time? Armaan stood up slowly. "So I guess this is it." Aisha also stood up. She looked at him for a long moment. Not sadness, not anger, just acceptance. Then she said something neither of them expected. "We were never meant to end just to become a memory that taught us something." Armaan nodded slowly, his eyes slightly heavy. "I'll always remember you." Aisha smiled faintly. "I already know." And then they walked away. They didn't hug. They didn't cry loudly. They didn't make dramatic promises. They simply stood there for a second longer than necessary, and then turned in opposite directions. Not because they stopped caring, but because sometimes love doesn't end. It just stops asking to stay. Final thought. Some people come into your life to stay forever. Others come to teach you what forever feels like. Aisha and Armaan were not a mistake. They were a chapter, a beautiful one, that shaped them, and then let them go. And even years later, if you asked either of them what love meant, they would both remember the same thing. Not the ending, but the beginning that felt like forever. Years passed, but neither Aisha nor Armaan ever truly forgot what they had. Life moved on as it always does. But some people don't leave your heart, they just leave your life. One evening, Aisha stood by her window watching the city lights. Her phone stayed silent just like it had for years. But for the first time she smiled without sadness, because she finally understood something. Not every love story is meant to last forever. Some are meant to change you forever. At the same time, somewhere else in the city, Armaan was looking at an old picture of them. He didn't cry. He didn't regret. He just whispered softly, "Thank you for being my first forever." And just like that, their story didn't end with anger or hate. It ended with peace. Because real love, even when it doesn't stay, never really dies.